Have you ever wanted a single wireless controller that will be compatible with your laptop, smartphone, tablet and console along with a 15-hour battery life? Well, you have come to the right place because I have found it. The controller is called the GameSir G3s. It supports games from Android and iOS. It also comes with its own free app which allows you to download and emulate games from the Nintendo DS, Game Boy Advance, PS1, PSP and even retro consoles such as the Super Nintendo and the Sega Mega Drive, etc. Suffice to say, you are getting a lot for a very low price, which I will disclose later. Inside the box you get a carrying pouch, an instruction manual and warranty card, a USB cable to charge the internal battery, another USB cable so you can hardwire the controller to your device, a Bluetooth dongle for your computer, a smartphone bracket, and finally the controller itself. So first impressions is that it looks like a hybrid of both the PlayStation and Xbox controllers. The face buttons are very tactile, which makes playing games with them very responsive, and a nice touch is that they are backlit. The D-pad is a million times better than both the Xbox and PlayStations, as I actually enjoy using it whilst gaming. Also, the trigger and shoulder buttons have the perfect amount of travel when I press them, and the analog sticks are very comfortable too. My only criticism with the build quality is that the analog sticks feel a bit too small. I have medium-sized hands and from time to time my thumbs do slide off. I think if you were to have large hands then you will probably struggle with this. So let's connect the bracket onto the controller. So first you put the controller into it like that. Then you close this top part and snap it shut, and there you go. Now it's time to slide your phone into it. Now my phone is a Nexus 6 and unfortunately there is a flaw with the design of this bracket. Phones have volume rockers and power buttons on their side, and when you put your phone on the center of this thing, then your buttons start being pressed and you can't play like this. As a result, I'm forced to move my phone off angle a little bit, and that is really quite irritating. So let's connect it via Bluetooth. Now there are multiple key combinations and they differ depending on which device you are trying to connect this to, so once you have done that, you are ready to go. So let's start by testing this on some Android games. Now mobile games have the potential to be great, but due to the fact that the controls have no tactile feedback, they feel unresponsive and unenjoyable. That being said, Amazing Spider-Man 2 is still not fun even with physical controls. That kind of tells you my thoughts on this game. The more interesting games to play is the likes of Dead Trigger 2, and as you can see, it works really well. This is by far a much better example, and I can see people having a lot of fun with this. Right, so it's time to check out some emulators. Happy Chick is the name of the app that comes included with this controller, and it's basically a free app store for retro and previous generation portable games such as the DS and PSP. So let's take a look at how a few of them run. First up, it's time for Super Nintendo emulation. This is one of my favorite games for the old system. It's a side-scrolling beat-em-up type game which is very similar in concept to Streets of Rage, although in my opinion I like this better. The bosses are cheap, but that's besides the point. On the whole, Super Nintendo emulation is very smooth and flawless. So with that said, let's see how the app emulates other systems. It's time for Spider-Man 3 on the PSP. Or not, because it's being very poorly emulated as you can see. I don't know what it is with PSP emulation, but it seems to range from okay to downright terrible, which is clearly being demonstrated here. After about a minute of gameplay, or two if you're lucky, the game crashes. So if Spider-Man is a game you are hoping to play on this, quite frankly you should just forget about it, as this is one of the worst emulated games I've tried on this. So PSP emulation is more of an experiment at the moment rather than a viable alternative to the actual system. Okay, it's time to get really nostalgic here. This is Nintendo DS emulation, and I thought I would emulate one of my favorite games for the system, Ben 10 Protector of Earth. Back when I was a kid, I actually uploaded a full playthrough of this game. Ah, memories. And to this day, it's still one of my go-to DS games. Anyway, as you can see, Nintendo DS emulation is excellent. Again, much like the PSP, it's not really worth playing this on your phone. You might as well play it on an actual Nintendo DS or 3DS if you happen to have either system. Alright, this is more of a proof of concept, as by law everyone must talk about Goldeneye when they emulate retro games. The emulation is better than I expected, but even more surprisingly, it's actually hit and miss. About 70% of the time it stutters like crazy, but the other 30% as demonstrated here, it runs well. And even though it happens every now and then, I have never seen a portable device emulate Goldeneye this well before. What makes it completely unplayable though is the lack of customizable controls. In order to shoot, I literally have to press the select button and there is no way I can remap it. So yeah, in the end, it still isn't worth it. There are a couple of other N64 games that emulate quite well like Rampage, but at the end of the day, as I said, it's just hit and miss. And finally, PlayStation emulation. All the PS1 games I threw at it worked extremely well. Batman Forever is somehow worse than the movie, but it still runs the way it's meant to, I suppose. Street Fighter Alpha 3, now we're talking. To be honest, I was a bit skeptical if this was going to run. It's not super technical or anything, but it is a much bigger file size than Batman Forever, which was only 65 megabytes, whereas Street Fighter here is 503. but to my restrained surprise, it runs perfectly and is a lot of fun. I personally prefer Street Fighter 2 Special Champion Edition, but that's just me. So there we be, the GameSir G3s is a fantastic all-in-one controller to use for mobile gaming. That being said, I personally have no interest in mobile games. It's the emulators I primarily use this for, and for the most part they work fine. It's the PSP, N64 and even the Dreamcast emulators that put up a fight and don't work properly. That being said, you can find other emulators that will probably fare better, and the controller is compatible with them as well. There is very little in the way of flaws. The only others I will add is that the Bluetooth functionality is not supported with Macs, and there is no way of connecting this to the PS4. But other than that, I think this is a superb device, and if you have any particular uses for it, then without a doubt I suggest that you buy one. Especially when you take into account the price that these are knocking out at. In the UK they retail for £60, but on websites like Amazon you can pick it up for $30, and in the US you can pick it up for $40. For a controller that is this diverse and offers this amount of flexibility, I cannot recommend it highly enough. Don't forget to give this video a thumbs up if you liked it, and share this video so more people will know that a controller like this exists. Thank you very much for watching, and I will see all of you next time. Take care.